How would you describe Larry Ramos as a person?
Well, it's very difficult to give a simple description because I knew him for many years, and he changed a lot over those years. Yeah, he mellowed out tremendously. When I first got a hold of him and I first met him, boy, he was hot. Hey, hey, da, 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 you know. Showbiz, 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 because his basic being had been in show business since he was like 4 years old. You know, and by the time he'd gotten older, it's sort of, hey, what's going on, man? You know, he really changed a whole lot. He mellowed out.
Well, tell me about his talent.
As an instrumentalist, he was really good. He just knew all kind of chords, I'll call it jazz chords, on the guitar and ukulele, because that's what he did. He figured them out when he was a little kid. So it was just a natural thing to him. As a singer, he was top of the line. Real good tenor singer, and had all kind of influences, you know, in his music, and he could sort of copy anybody's style that there was out there, you know.
And part of the reason he got his break in the association was because of you.
Yeah.
Tell me that story.
Well, I had left the band. I was done. You know, I said, okay, guys, I'm done, you know, and they were not happy about that, but I was not happy about being in the band at the moment. It was just been too much for me. So I left, and I don't know how they picked him. One of the other guys can maybe tell you, but he was like he sang like one verse of one song for the guys, and they said, "Okay, that's it, let's go," you know. And he had been out. He was in the Christie Minstrels before that, and he was then out of the Christie Minstrels. And he said, "Okay," and that was what put him in the band. I had been out of the band for a while, like maybe a year. And I was starting another band. I started another band called Joshua Fox, and that was with Tetragrammaton Records, which was Bill Cosby's record company. But it just didn't work out. We left that. But I realized what I was trying to do with with Joshua Fox was create the association again, the vocals, the whole shot. And I said, "Well, what am I doing, man?" God. So I just came back to a rehearsal one day they were doing. I said, "Guys, I would like to get back in the band again. You know, if you want me, okay. If you don't, that's cool too." And they said, "Well, go away for a while." And what do you mean? I said, "Oh, go get a Coke," or something like that. So I did. And I came back and said, "Okay, you're back in. Larry stays." I said, "Yeah, cool. Now we're a 7-man band. We can do more complex arrangements." And so he stayed, and so did I. And he and I got along real good. So you know.
Yeah, can you expand on that, how you personally got along with Larry?
Oh, real good. First of all, we really were both into music real hard, so it was very easy to get along that way. And he had a completely different style of music than I had, which was great because that way we could sort of bounce off each other. Well, try this. I don't like that particular note because try this note instead. They go, oh, or the other way around. I could say, hey, you got a great arrangement. I want to put this part in, you know. And if he liked it, yeah, let's do it. You know, so it was a real pretty productive relationship.
You kind of touched on it earlier about him being accepted. He was the only person of color in the association.
Yeah.
Was that a factor at all? Did that ever come
Not
up?
a bit. I mean, we were talking about music, you know, and none of the guys in the band were not that much racist. None of them were. Which we were real lucky about because there was a lot of racism around at that time, you know, in the early 60s. So it said, okay, cool, you know, just come on in, you know, simple as that, you know.
Just a little bit about the band itself,
Yeah.
or the group itself. You guys had the 6-part harmonies, and talk to me about the sound that the association was.
Well, since we came from folk music, large groups, that was a common thing. That was very common. You know, you had the Christie Minstrels, you had just a whole bunch of bands that had lots of vocals. And I did a lot of the vocal arranging in a couple of bands like that. And then the Men, which was a band before the association that it came from, we had 13 people. So it was easy to do a 6-part harmony doubled, each voice. So that just, whoa, you know, that's really cool. And we just kept it up. Of course, we had a unique sound, unique songs, you know, they're fairly unique. We went around and auditioned at every record company there was. Nobody knew what we were. There was no folk rock yet. That was it. Finally, Valiant said, listen, we don't know what you guys are, but we like it, so we're going to take you on. And that was really cool. And the DJs were behind us. They heard it, and so.
You guys always wore suits too, right?
Well, at that time, everybody wore suits. Look at the pictures of the Rolling Stones. Look at pictures. Everybody wore suits. We were wearing suits.
Were you afraid that you might be labeled as being too conservative or too?
We didn't give a shit. Honestly, we just could care less. We're going to do our music. People buy our music. They like it. Ha! So and we maintained it. But one day we had played this gig down in Orange County, here, California somewhere, and we were coming back, driving through Hollywood because we all lived in that area, and we drove by this cleaners that was on fire, and we went, wow, that's really bad. It was the cleaners that had most of our suits in it, so they all got burned up. So from that point on, we said, well, let's just kind of ease up on that a little bit, So we stopped wearing suits per se, and as time went on, we got back to it. So,
what do you think Larry brought to the association?
Well, his sense of the professionalism, I would say, because he had been a professional, a working professional, since he was a kid, and we all came into it in our early 20s, and even though we were there, there's a professionalism in anything. You have to be in for years to really get what's going on, and Larry had that, so we kind of followed his lead in a lot of stuff, so that's the way of it.
And he sang co-lead on two of the biggest songs he ever did,
Yeah.
Never My Love and Windy.
Yeah.
Why was he good for those songs? Yeah.
What we did is we didn't care. We could all sing lead, and we said, okay, who sounds the best on this? And we always did two voices. It was that was just a technique that we used. And Larry and Terry sounded the best. Bingo. And that was it. Simple as that.
So no, like jealousies or rivalries that, hey, I want to sing lead here.
If somebody really wanted to sing, well, you say, okay, we'll give you a chance. You show us what you got, and if it sounded good, yeah. But if it didn't sound so good, or there was something a little better, we'd say, no, you don't do this. Somebody else is going to do it.
Did you know him when he began to get ill during that phase, or?
Oh yeah. When I came back to the band, well, a lot of things. I was out of the band for about 18 years, okay? I really finally said, I got to do something else. And I got into computers, and I was a data analyst for 18 years. And Larry was getting sicker and sicker. He had a number of issues with him. And he had to go on dialysis. And what was happening is, he would go into dialysis, and he couldn't go on the road for a day or two. So Russell called me up and said, listen, Larry, there's times when Larry can't go on. Would you come fill in with him? And it just happened. I said, well, let me see about it. And I checked out the schedule of the band. I had the exact amount of time off. It was like in my company to the day that Larry wouldn't be able to be in there. So I said, yeah, I can do it. So I came back to do those things. And Larry got more ill, and he finally could not go on the road anymore. And he had hand problems and all this stuff. And check this out. Russell called up my wife and said, look, we want to get Jules back in the band. What do you think? And she said, cool, go for it. She said, yeah, go ahead. She knew what that was about, me being on the road and everything. And so then Russ called me up and said, do you want to come in? And I said, let me think about it. And I talked to my wife, Cynthia. I said, do you think I should do it? She said, yeah, do it. So bingo, That was it. That was 2012, I believe.
Were you there for his final concert?
Yes, absolutely.
What was that like?
It was incredible.
How emotional was that, though?
Pretty much.
Talk to me about that.
But again, it was professional. You go, you get on there, and you do it right, and you don't get distracted by stuff, and he was the same way. It was like, there was no difference in his performance than 20 years ago to then, except his hands were getting worse and he couldn't play very well at all. So, you know.
But you guys probably knew the end was fairly soon.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's no two ways about it. You know.
So it wasn't, I mean, were there some tears shed, or I mean?
Well, of course, but still, you know, you're professional. You go do the gig, you know. And so that was, you know,
Yeah.
that's what we did.
Before we let you go, I mean, you got the band started, the original,
Yeah.
I guess, back when you were in Hawaii, right? Tell me how you first got the band started with Terry.
I was in the Navy. I was stationed at Pearl Harbor, and I was playing guitar. I had a really nice guitar. I had gone out one night to hang out and went to this party, and I was sitting over a corner messing around with with my guitar, and I heard somebody playing, I thought a flute, in the other side of the room, and whoever was playing like he and I had played together for years. I mean, I'd go to these strange chords, bam, bam, bam. He would follow me right to there, and we went on. And actually, that was Terry Kirkman. And I met him that night, and it was a recorder that he was playing, not a flute. And we just went, oh, hey, man. You know, and we hung out together and met each other and knew each other in Hawaii. Well, he was over there, he was working for more business forums, okay? They had put him over there to learn the business. Terry had decided not to do that in his life, so he went back to the mainland, and I said, well, okay, Terry, I'll see you, you know, when we see you. And so a couple of years after that, after I got out of the Navy, I lived in Pomona, California, and I was doing folk music, and I had gotten back. This is almost immediately after I was out of the Navy. And my mom knew that I was into folk music. She said, you know, there's a folk music place up just over in Montclair, Claremont, just north of where I was in Ontario, California. And I said, why don't you go check it out? I said, oh, cool. So I went up there one night, opened the door, and there's Terry over in the corner talking to a couple of people. He managed the place. So Terry and I got together and started playing around again, and we started going all the folk clubs around LA and Orange County and all that sort of thing. Yeah. And we ended up spending a lot of time at the Troubadour because that was sort of the heart chakra of folk music in those days.
Why do you think the sound has kept audiences captivated so long?
There are two things in music that really pull people in: drums and vocals. That is it. That is the basis of all music. I went to a luau in Hawaii one time, and they played old Hawaiian songs. It was nothing but drums and vocal, and it was just, you know, wooden clogs. It was incredible. I think funny.
Why do you get so choked up over that?
How deep it was. Kind of realized that's where music is, you know, and it still gets me. But that is it. That's what pulls people in. Everything else is icing.
Yeah, I think you're being modest though. I mean, there's something special about the association that has just lasted generations.
Vocals, vocals, man.
Okay, but
That's
the lyrics,
it. The lyrics, sure, that's icing too.
Yeah. Okay.
But lyrics are just a vocalization of the moves of the Hawaiian music.
Yeah.
You know, they're telling a story.
Yeah.
Lyrics are just telling a story too.
Yeah. But you must have people always coming up saying, "Hey, we played this song, one of the association songs at our wedding," or you know.
Hey, well, cool. Yeah, good. I like that.
Never mind.